Hey, welcome back to Conversations in the Round. I've got Justin Bradshaw here. I've got Corinne Evans here, who I'll introduce a little bit more in a second. We got Chris Kelly here, and which is a little bit different than what we've been doing the last few weeks because the Rooted series, we were reintroducing new content, even in the Conversation in the Round. And we're back to sermon and then kind of diving into the past sermon a little deeper. So that's what we're doing today. If you watched last week's sermon, about dinner with Jesus. We're going to dive into that a little bit deeper. Before I do that, though, many of you got hold of or were sent and received in some form or fashion a video that I did, which was pretty raw, right? I just did it at my desk. We didn't do any production on it, and I thought it was going to be just, a trial. But we decided to send it out because what we understand is you need that kind of information. You need to see, peek behind the curtain and see what's really going on, which, you can do on an almost daily basis, 7 minutes each time with my Rechurch podcast. Honestly, I've done like 93 podcasts, which is, I've never done anything to that degree 93 times in my life, with the exception of messages. But I'm being silly here, but I'm telling you, that is the best way to keep up with what's going on because I'm basically just hitting what's on our minds as a team every other day, pretty much. So anyway, I wanted to just re-hit some of the content from the video because we've had lots of good feedback, really tons of good it's all good feedback, every piece of it, but there does seem to be some clarity. Maybe you just need to hear it said again. So I wanted to hit couple points here about that video, and then I'd enjoy y'all's, chime in when I get done here. Okay, so number one, we are working real hard to be a church that is responsive, that is listening, that is prayerful. We think about the Israelites leaving Egypt, and Moses is leading them into the desert, and what could have been a week or 2 week journey from point A to point B, the promised land took 40 years. They weren't lost. It's a common misunderstanding. They were learning to follow Jesus. They were learning to follow the voice of God. They were learning to let the Spirit lead. That means you stay in one place for a day or a week or a year or 2 years, however long Jesus wants you there, however long God says, right? So we're trying to do the same thing. We're trying to move at a pace that allows us the ability to be agile and go where God wants. So keep praying. We're moving forward. We're trying to move forward slowly. Remember, no matter what we do, what we want to hold tightly to is Jesus. What we want to be focused on is the mission that God's given us. What we want to hold loosely to are the strategies that we come up to accomplish both of those things. To be the church is to hold tightly to Jesus, is to listen to God, is to let the Spirit lead us. Everything else is up for grabs. What is the most effective means to care for the church and to reach others? So that's what we're going to do. There's our context. Okay, so here's some of the specifics. No, I'm not resigning, nor am I retiring. When I said I don't want to go back, what that means is I have a call on my life, like many Christians do, to follow Jesus forward. I'm committed to following him wherever he takes us. And usually, God does things differently in the future than he does them in the past. Only one army of God circled around a city 7 times and the walls fell. Never did it again. When he asked Moses to hit the rock to get the water, he did. The next time he hit the rock, he was punished. It's like we have got to listen to God and move forward. So when I say I want to go back, it means I am committed to what Jesus is leading us into in the future. We imagine that it's different, and I really want to be on the gospel's edge, doing exactly what God calls us to do. So that's where I want to be. Stay in groups. Stay together in your groups. These have been an amazing connection point for the church, more than I could have imagined. No matter how you meet, in person or Zoom or however that maps out, Keep living missionally. These are big things for church, right? This is church, group dynamics, missional living, and engaging with our city and our partners in our local communities and the greater city of Columbus. And then finally, let me be clear about this. We are searching for permanent space in the northwest quadrant of the city in order to move into the direction of meeting regularly as a church and eventually weekly again. I would not be surprised if that's where we end up. Again, how fast? I don't know. We're trying to go as quick as we can. We would love to be able to be somewhere in the Northwest, in addition to the North Central facility, sometime this summer. That'd be great. And so that's where we're headed. We're looking for that. So be praying for that, and look forward to more and more gathering spaces on Sunday as we move forward. How was that?
It was great.
Was that okay?
It's all right.
Yep.
It's all right. Do it better. What do you think?
No.
How would you add to it?
Well, I mean, I do have thoughts, but I would like to defer to our guest.
Yeah. Oh, I should introduce
first.
Corinne. This is
Yeah.
Corinne Evans. Let me get that.
What?
Yeah, that's good. This is Corinne. She's on our board. She's been a part of Vista for a long time. We've known her for years. She's leading in the kids community space now.
Yeah.
Recently retired middle school principal.
Yes, sir.
We couldn't be happier to have Corinne a part of our board and a part of our ministry team and a part of this church, her along with Randy. She's got 3 grown kids, some grandkids, the whole 9 yards.
All that.
You've been awesome.
Well,
super timely, so thank you.
I feel very blessed to be in this space, and am very excited to be serving God in where I'm at right now. So thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. So
I'm convicted by the stay in groups piece. I just really find that extremely important. And it could, wherever the groups are, we've got to be in community with each other. And so that part of the message really was very impactful for me.
Yeah. We all have different traditions on what it means to gather. Some of us have grown up in churches where it was 3 times a week: Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday evening. Some of us have been house church situations, big church, mega church. All those things are important. We know from experience that no matter what the big groups will look like, the most significant connection almost always comes through a smaller group of committed friends that are aware of what's happening in our lives and challenging us and encouraging us through it.
And regardless of the day, doesn't matter what day it is. If you're in community with somebody that you have a relationship with, it's going to end up being a good thing for everybody.
Good word. What would you add to those things? Anything in particular?
Well, as worship leaders, we've been reading a book very, very slowly.
Sometimes that's the best way.
Because every time we get together, we are posturing ourselves in such a way that we are kind of asking God, okay, what do you want to do tonight? And sometimes it means we get to the book, and sometimes it doesn't. So we have been reading this book. It's called How to Worship a King by Zach Nisi. Everybody pick it up.
Zach Nisi.
Yeah. And man, it has just been flipping our idea of how to worship, how to give God the worship he deserves, kind of upside down. And what I mean by that is, for me in particular, I kind of got hung up, 2 chapters ago, on this idea of how we have designed church around the model of the Reformation instead of the model of the gospel. And so I think when we talk about going back, or we don't want to go back, we don't want to go back to the thing that we did before because we know how to do that. We want to do whatever's next. We want to worship God in the way that he wants us to worship. And it's probably, there may be some elements of what we've always done, but it's probably not going to be exactly the same, even if we come back to doing it every week.
That's the good point. That's the point I keep wanting to emphasize is not going back doesn't mean there's a lack of value for what it means to gather corporately.
Yeah.
It's that we don't want to get back to gathering corporately so quickly that we lose sight of some of the more important things, or some of the many important things that need to be a part of who we are as a church.
Yeah.
You know how that goes. It's just so easy to retreat back to what you've always known, and to add something to what you do in life, whatever it is, and keep it as a priority. It just takes a long time to get it in, keep it in your toolbox. And so we just want to make sure we don't lose some of the good things that God's done through this time by shuffling back too quickly to what is easier or more common, or what we're more used to. It doesn't mean we're not doing that.
Right.
We're going to gather.
Right.
We're going to gather on Sunday morning. I was even going to say, it's probably unreasonable to think in my lifetime that I won't be gathering on Sunday morning for church. We will. We will. But we don't want that to be so much of a priority that we do a disservice by the whole congregation and not lead them down a more robust, gospel-oriented understanding and definition of what church is.
Well, first, I need to call out Corinne.
Already?
Alrighty.
She just
Oh
goes
yeah,
there.
oh yeah. We're not. Don't let the
Chris is doing like 3 or 4 of these conversations a week. He's super casual and cocky at this point about these things.
Cocky's probably true. So let me leave with forgiveness. Okay.
Why don't you start over?
So don't let Corinne fool you into thinking
Okay.
that she doesn't have a mind filled with things that you need to listen to and dwell upon and feel compelled by.
Yeah.
So yeah, you are so polite in how you approach things.
Yes.
which is wonderful. Don't get me wrong.
What he's saying is you are so polite outwardly and so impolite inwardly. And what we really want is...
Here's what I've learned. And granted, I'm still learning who you are, but here's something I've learned really quickly. Things I didn't even realize I had to seriously consider.
Yeah.
I've realized that by listening to you.
Yeah.
Oh my.
I'm like, oh my goodness, that is important.
Yeah.
I need to pray about that.
Yeah.
I feel convicted by that.
Yeah.
So I just want to call that out in case
that's good.
anybody's,
That's good.
you know,
Yep.
no illusions here.
Yeah.
No smoke and mirrors.
All right.
Thanks,
You
Corinne.
asked for it.
Bring it.
Anyway, so I am very opinionated about this, and so so in a way, I feel as though I should ask for a permission / offer a really heartfelt apology if anything in the way that I express my feelings and thoughts, which are still in development, are offensive to anybody. But the things that you shared in the video are very important things to consider, and maybe not so much the surface of what you're proposing or what you're expressing, but what's our heart and our motivations behind these things, and everybody's unpacking this still. In 2020, among a number of different lessons, there were 2 things that were revealed that were personally impactful to me. One, there was a pretty broad paralysis amongst the church, if I could just use a broad term like that. Not true for everybody. We certainly have friends in the city and partners that felt mobilized and they multiplied and they grew. But we experienced a fair bit of paralysis in that. And as a result of that, there was an explosion of missional opportunities, many of which we did engage. But I also know for many of us, we felt this sudden unraveling of anything that made sense to us, anything that was stable, predictable, comfortable. And our immediate and very natural reaction to that is, this is not good.
Right.
And I totally get it, because I had to wrestle with those things myself. But we are still asking that question based upon those feelings. The immediate reaction is, because it doesn't make sense, it must not be good.
Or uncomfortable.
Or uncomfortable, so it must not be good. It must not be for my good, for the glory of God. It certainly can't be that. And to call out prayer, That is the question. Can you look in the mirror and say, am I listening to God? Am I really sitting and listening to God?
Or and we do the same thing. It's not just, do I have a good idea? It's not just, am I getting what I want? It's none of that. We're all sitting in this space going, okay, it's not about me. And so prayer, apart from even just the words you're saying, is a posture. It's like, God, you're in the center of this thing. Jesus, you're the king. I'm not. I have to follow you, or it's wrong.
Yeah. And do we lead with trust, which is an expression of love? And we're told in the gospel that perfect love casts out fear. Too often I feel, and I'm guilty of this for sure, I'm leading with some form of fear or anxiety, and I'm not leading with trust. I'm not leading with trust in my relationship with the Lord. I'm not leading in trust in my relationship with you as a lead pastor, or the community of pastors here and leaders here, or the community at large as we move. And it has this ripple effect. And there's something about this paralysis that is revealed that we have forgotten that our purpose is to be on mission. That is our core purpose. It's not, like you said, it's not to say that the rest of it isn't of value.
Well, you can't be on mission well if you're not healthy and together as a people, which is what the almost sort of the foundation for mission is, who you are in Christ, not necessarily as a person, but as a community.
Yeah.
So it is both and so person would probably say to you, yes, I want to be on mission, but shouldn't we still care for one another? Yes, absolutely, for the purpose of going.
Yeah.
The problem is it's much easier to care for one another and stay united inside together like that. We just have to at least notice and acknowledge that it's much easier not to move.
Yeah. I mean, this is something I so respect about your willingness and your leadership, is that you are calling us as a community to engage this space that it's not an issue of whether it's good or bad or wrong or right. It's this really complicated challenge of, is this good thing not the best thing in light of our mission and purpose as God's people? That's really hard to discern, and so it's tough. So if people are really struggling with that, you're, of course, we all are.
Yeah. This is hard. I'm sorry, I'm talking too much.
I'm really intrigued by the idea of embracing the fear, embracing the uncomfortableness, and being able to put my trust in God and where He wants us to go, but recognizing that it's going to feel uncomfortable because it's different. Yeah. And connected to that, taking advantage of the what we've had to accomplish and what we've had to, the season we've had to be in for the last year. I feel like we're almost at an intersection. We've gone this far, and if we don't continue on down that road, it's going to feel like we've lost miles and miles and miles on that road. So I don't know. In my life, I felt like when I was the most afraid of something, if I was able to say, okay, I know God is telling me to go to this direction and do it anyway, has been when I have felt closest to Him and also been able to be closest to the people that I'm working with or working for.
Yeah. In the trenches, in the foxholes, is no one wants to be there.
Right.
But it's where you feel the most value and connected to other people, for sure. I don't know if you remember this, but to your point of we've got to keep going down this path. We can't abort it, the mission too soon. In June, when we realized we weren't going to be able to have the kind of gatherings, even in the summer outside, that we thought we were going to have, we said at that time, we are not aiming for the end of the pandemic. We're aiming for September of 2021 for that very reason. We knew it would take at least 6 to 9 months to get some real understanding and change going. So it might be helpful for people to understand this is not a change. It's like we have been aiming on a slow and gradual and learning return to whatever God has for us post-pandemic on for another 3-4 months. So this is we've really been trying to follow God through the whole thing, the whole lot of it. I've really put a lot of it's given me some confidence that we even arrived at that situation in June to be able to aim that far. I don't even know why we did that, but it was like, it's turned out to be like super helpful for me because it's not so pandemic centric.
Right.
It's still like, okay, God, we're in this thing for the long haul.
Yeah. I think maybe one of the most uncomfortable things I've heard expressed is when we are basically expressing something along the lines of, really, we don't know. We're trying to follow God. We're trying to be responsive. And the person asking really wants me or you to have an answer that makes sense. It's like you're adding an additional layer of challenge to something that's already challenging. And
because there's no clarity.
That's
why I'm
I
trying
wish
to
there was
give
a
it.
shortcut.
That's why I'm
it's
trying
just
to
so
give
hard.
it. Like the clarity, the best clarity that we have is we're looking for space, bricks and mortar, no rental space like we've done in the past. That ship has sailed as well. There's something we're not going back to. If you want to know what we're not going back to, it's mobile church rental space, carrying equipment on our backs every week. We're not doing that. We're going to find a permanent space so that we can set up a room just like this that's usable whenever we need it, however we need it. That's some clarity. We're looking for that. We're going to meet on Sunday mornings at increasing frequencies. If I had to bet money on it, it would eventually be weekly in some form or fashion. So that's where we're heading back to. There's the clarity. Exactly where, exactly how, I don't know. But we also, in the meantime, we still have to be concerned about the values associated with gathering and caring for people. Like we got some feedback from a number of people that are looking forward to church again, for lack of a better way to put it, because they're at the end of the rope. They're at the end of they're hanging on by a very thin thread. Okay, the two things can be true at once. We might not have exactly what that person's looking for, but I do care about that person, and are there ways to care for that person and create some community? And so it's not like, well, if you're not getting the value of community, tough for you. That's not the answer. No, there are ways to build community around particular needs and to provide it for one another, even though we haven't landed on this thing yet. And we care about that. So you got to raise your hand and say, part of the reason we're even going to start this conversation in a couple weeks about mental health. Like everybody is at least in a fog, and in the worst case, really some seriously diagnosable mental health. And the losses that we've suffered and the inability to congregate in different ways is clearly part of that. So we understand these are important things. These are important things. We're not minimizing it by saying there's only a little bit of clarity at this point. All very important stuff. All right, let's shift gears a little bit. Can we shift, do you think? We talked about Jesus coming to dinner, and then a number of things worked out of that. And I started with this kind of lighthearted, what would be the kind of things that would be concerning to you, the petty things that would be concerning to you if Jesus was coming over? And I wanted to re-ask that question of you guys. My favorite one is my simple question of, so where are you from originally? I personally got a kick out of the idea of asking Jesus where he's from originally, because I want to hear that answer. What would you be worried about if Jesus was coming over to dinner?
Getting that answer wrong.
Getting that wrong? Yeah.
Well, I start with like, okay, is it okay if Jesus doesn't see all the rooms in my house? And then
you have to give him a complete tour?
That's right. That's right.
Here's the secret. He's seen everything.
I know.
Yeah.
But what if we didn't get that one remodeled yet? Or,
it's not done yet.
And then I start to think, okay, is it okay to ask him? Oh, like other people asked him to heal, like when they had him over. Like, is that okay?
Yeah.
Because that could work out pretty great.
Is that selfish?
And then I realized that might be selfish.
Yeah.
Or might not be. But either way, I think up until that point, nobody else has been invited.
So it's definitely selfish.
So it's definitely selfish.
Definitely selfish.
And then I think, okay, well, who do I invite? And I have to work through like, do I invite people from Vista? Do I invite my friends outside of Vista? Do I invite my neighbors who don't know him that live across the street? And then I don't know. So I loved, I think he would be interested in my woodworking tools. I
think so, too.
appreciated that, that question.
Here's what I would ask Aaron to ask him to heal the things that you need. And it doesn't seem so selfish.
There you go. There you go.
It's like, hey, could you help with my husband's? She might even have other things that she wants him to heal.
Yeah.
That you don't even know.
Good
Yeah.
barometer of what needs changed. I would feel a little bit bad if he looked at our backyard because it is trashed. It's in bad shape. And I'd be like, I didn't take care of the garden. Sorry, dude.
If he's so moved, he could whisper and make it exactly what it's supposed to be. What would you be worried about? Anything? Mr. Tough Guy?
This is going to sound like such a good Christian
Just saying.
No, I'm not worried at all.
right.
It's the thought of it,
That's
like
a load.
Good for you.
for him to be there, and I can ask all the questions I have.
That's right.
And listen to tell the stories that aren't in Scripture. All that.
That's right.
Chris's
I'm
middle
stoked.
name is Mary.
That's the
How long can you stay? Can you stay longer?
that's the right answer.
You know, stuff like that.
Way to go. Corinne, anything in the spirit of my question?
I live in Martha's world.
Okay.
I am Martha.
Yeah.
So obviously, I would think about, is my house clean enough?
Yeah.
What am I going to do with my dog? I'm worried about my dog. And then I want to know about the women around Jesus.
Yes.
I want to know what he really thought and his impressions.
Yes.
And without men's perspective on and the written perspective of man. So those would be the things I'd be curious about.
I can totally understand that. So I didn't think about this until I was talking to my family afterwards. When you imagine opening the door and Jesus is there, what is he wearing in your mind's eye?
Sandals.
Is he in his garb from the first century? Yeah, that's what I wondered. Or is he dressed like a person from today? Because he wouldn't be wearing first century.
Oh, he's coming to dinner like, oh yeah, he's here now. We're not back there then.
So you see him, if you think about it, he'd be dressed just like any normal person his age around now.
Think about that.
Like, I don't know, I got to admit.
Because I want to go
like,
back there.
He's dressed like some picture I saw in a children's Bible thing.
That was my vision or my thought when you were talking about it.
Yeah.
I would feel bad that he'd probably be on the porch longer than he should be.
Waiting around. Is this working?
That's a weird. What if it was now? What would he be wearing? That's a weird question.
Yeah.
He wouldn't be wearing a suit.
He's
I
still
would love
wearing
to see it. 'Cause I
Birkenstocks.
gotta be
think it would be
jeans.
cool. I think he'd be cool.
Yeah.
I really do.
Gotta be jeans.
I think people would be
Well-worn
like,
jeans.
Yeah.
but he wouldn't spend a lot of money
Not
on it. I know that.
Birkenstocks.
No, I agree.
He'd be shopping with me at Plato's Closet for sure.
Yeah. He's not wearing Birks though.
No.
You don't
Maybe
think so?
Tivas. We can. Maybe. But not
Probably.
Birks.
He'd probably dress a lot like Adam, now that I think about it.
Oh, yeah.
I don't like this question anymore.
Adam,
Since he's not here to defend
Adam's,
himself.
I'm pretty sure, has got pants. Nobody knows who Adam. Never mind.
Yeah.
You do know who Adam is, but all right. The invitation list. This is where we spent some time. Like, who do you? To your point, who are we supposed to invite? React to this statement. All the interactions that Jesus had with everyday people, they were all. Nobody was in the normal part of the curve. Like, he met with the dregs of society. He met with people. It was shocking that he met with them. That's who he hung out with. When you think about that, what do you think? What do you think about those kinds of meetings? Like, and even like, which ones stand out to you? Who did he meet with, and you think, whoa, that's crazy, or that one resonates with me, or because he did, like, he was constantly shocking people with who he talked to, who he touched, who he healed, who he.
Yeah. And he moved seamlessly from interacting with people that religious leaders would have deemed unclean.
Right.
And he moved seamlessly from meeting with them to meeting with religious leaders.
Yeah, royalty. Yeah, he could hang. Yeah.
That may be, as we've been talking about it over the last week or so, that may be one that actually sticks out to me more, that he's meeting with Pharisees and he's going over to their houses at their invitation, and he knows what's going to happen.
Yeah.
He knows he's getting tested.
Yeah.
He knows he's getting questioned.
Yeah.
He knows that they don't believe he is who he says he
Right.
is. And still he's willing to go
Yeah, totally.
and entertain the doubt and the testing. And simultaneously be like, oh yeah, and that guy needs healed, so we're just going to do that.
We're just gonna
and
knock
it
that
happens
out.
to be on the Sabbath, just to like mess with your head. Because he's the Lord of the Sabbath. He is showing everyone all the time who he is in his interactions.
Don't you think that's because he knows who he is and he
Yeah.
knows his truth, and
Yeah.
so it's when you know that about yourself, you can move more seamlessly from
Yeah.
one situation to another, and regardless of who you're around or who you're spending time with, you know that your truth, and it's so instructional to me and fascinating and just really convicting. That's the example he set for us, being able to go from one group of people to another comfortably because
Yeah.
he was aware of who he is and what he, who he was.
Yeah. And he never got described as arrogant,
Right.
which seems like that would naturally follow. Like if you
Yeah.
have that kind of, Matthew reports it this way, when Jesus finished saying these things, the crowds were amazed at his teaching because he taught as one who had authority and not as their teachers of the law. So you've got this, he didn't have this like better than me type of thing, but the way he taught to me is the same way that he travels between the different things. It's like you said, there's a gravitas there that is the gravitas of gravitas.
Right.
He is it.
Yeah.
And so he's unfettered by people's expectations, insecurities.
He has no insecurity about his reputation either.
Yeah, he doesn't care in one sense what happens to it. It's just this, I am who I am. Well, I am.
I am,
Is the way he
period.
would put it. Is the way he would put it.
Full stop.
But it wasn't arrogant. It wasn't
No.
arrogant. Like
No.
someone who, that I would like to hear 10 people that heard him from that crowd make that statement right there. Like Matthew said, because he taught as one with authority. I'd like to ask the Justin that was there and the Chris and the Corinne that were there, what did he teach like? I would love to hear that. It would be like, well, he was just, you just knew he was right. You just knew he was true. You just knew you had to believe it. I mean, it was this gravitas no matter who, because he couldn't. He wasn't catering to expectations or comparison, any of that.
That's a great question. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back and revisit that question because it's awesome.
Sounds good.
All right, we were talking about the gravitas of Jesus, and you guys were talking about some examples, and I didn't get to share mine.
Yes, go ahead.
So you threw me a bone here, but something you said actually really made a lot of sense to me. It's this idea of the confidence of his identity, and I think whenever you meet somebody who has that confidence, certainly you wouldn't compare to like the confidence of identity that Jesus has, but you can feel that, and there is a certain. It doesn't mean you're going to agree with it,
Right.
but there is a certain air about that. It's tough to put your finger on, but as you were sharing your different examples, what really came to mind was the woman at the well.
I was thinking the same thing.
Boom! It's the
So
Holy
was I.
Spirit.
There you go.
I even no matter how many times I look at and think about that interaction, I mean, I can't. It's this weird duality of, in a way, Jesus. It's like he almost like crushed her, but she wasn't crushed. She was built up and liberated and freed, and left that exchange in joy.
Yeah,
it's like I'm like if somebody called out those things, like I don't think I'd like that, and yet somehow she was freed by it.
It's truth with love. It's the call of Jesus. It's like the truth is crushing, and we use it like a hammer. But to give someone the truth, I think that goes right into some of the things that are on my mind that we're going to talk about in a minute is how do we actually live in this world in a truthful way when there's so much falsehood, even irrationality going around, even opposition to truth when it doesn't match my truth. And then we start to think that the truth is just going to be like some weird thing, like truth is going to hurt. It's going to be wrong or bad somehow. Like to believe in just truth again, not even just like biblical truth, just like truth.
Yeah. And that was the thing that liberated her, right? She went from going to the well at a time of day where she wouldn't see anybody to running back to the town and telling everyone that this guy told me everything I ever did.
And that was a good thing.
And that was a good thing.
Yes.
Right.
That's crazy.
What she didn't say that I can recall is he told me everything about me, and that's what comes next. The and is what is maybe even more powerful. I was, to your point, filled. I was embraced. I was not condemned.
Yeah.
I was freed. Her posture is I'm running. There's joy. Have you seen the rendition of that scenario in The Chosen?
It's really good.
It is powerful.
Really?
Powerful. You seen it?
No, because I'm not quite a Christian yet.
Oh,
Yeah, you're right.
well, I'm telling you,
You don't use a Mac
it's almost like the. This is way off. You said it. You guys know the Left Behind series?
Yeah.
Was super popular in the 80s, maybe. We had this wonderful Christian man who wrote one of the best books I've ever read. Was visiting to teach at our church, and we had him over for dinner. And he had this one-liner because that series came up.
Okay.
And we said, have you read it? And he's like, no, I just want to prove that I can get to heaven having not read that series. It's kind of like, I just want to prove that, you can still be a good Christian if you've not seen The Chosen. Right. But that scene is phenomenally done. Phenomenally well done. I would do it in secret even if you need to.
Yeah. Okay.
And hold your reputation of having never watched The Chosen.
All right. I won't let you know if I do.
So Jesus, Jesus interacts with all sorts of different people. He's the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow, no matter who he's with, he's the same. But the point being, like, he really does, his best friends, the people that he connected with the most, even his own disciples, we're a pretty eclectic group of people, yet we look at our own lives and we don't get there, not without some serious intention. Let me ask this question first. Why should we have a more diverse set of friends? Why should there be more diversity in our friends? Should there? Is that the right word? What is the purpose for it? Why does God call us to greater diversity? Friends, acquaintances, the whole thing. Can we answer that a little bit? Why? Why do we need it?
Every time you have an interaction with someone else, you learn something about them, but you can also learn something about yourself too. And so I think that it's integral to personal development, spiritual development, to try to make an effort to find people who are different from you. And whether it doesn't have to be race, it doesn't have to be gender, just ideology or socioeconomic status, because what we don't know we fear, and when we do learn, when we're around someone who's different from us, what we find out is we are different, but we also find out we're a lot alike in many different ways. And so I think we've got to, it has to be intentional. I heard you say that word. It's not, because it is scary.
Yeah.
We don't want to do it. It's not natural for most people.
Yeah. Even more scary today. Every conversation you start today, you think, you're kind of going like, okay, I just want to summarize what you said. That was instructive for me. When you said, you want to have a diverse group of friends because every time you talk to somebody, you can learn something about them, and you can learn something about yourself. And here's where that went through my head. And if all my friends are the same,
right,
I'm not learning very much.
No.
Because I
Right.
already know them, or
Right.
they're like me. So to your point, it's like, okay, it's not just, if you want to learn more about yourself, even, it's self-motivated, I don't mean it, but you got to be different.
Yep.
You're going to learn different things. That's good. I love it.
Yeah, and as the definition of a disciple is a learner, right? And so you put it in that kind of context, and you go, okay, if the books that I'm reading or the people that I'm listening to give sermons or the people I'm going to for advice are all the same, well, then you're gonna get what you designed for, right?
Yeah.
That's Chris likes to say that. You always get what you designed for. You're gonna only hear the same things, and you're not going to grow all that much. You're not going to learn anything new or different or be challenged. You're going to stay in the same place.
Yeah, I agree with all that. This is one of those things where I feel like these thoughts are for the Christian. And the reason I want to put it that way is not to say that the non-Christian can't find value in this space, but as a Christian, we should intentionally seek diversity. Because when you meet someone who appears to be different from you, and you understand that they're made in the image of God just like you are, God knows them and loves them and has made the gospel available to them, made his son available to them just like he has you, there's an opportunity to better know the heart and mind of God through that relational interaction. If you keep yourself contained in a really homogeneous environment, it's not that there aren't things you can't learn, but there is going to be a natural limit to it. And I'm never going to say that there isn't a value to having some of those easy relationships. You know, like I have a group of guys that I like to go out in the woods with, and that's easy and life-giving. But there's so much about God I've learned through the interactions of people who aren't wired like me. And to your point, it's such a good point. See what I'm talking about? You say stuff, I'm like, that's good.
She started the whole thing. And you're extrapolating what she said. She said every time you talk to somebody, you learn something about them, you learn something about yourself. Your dimension is, and when you're talking to a Christian,
and furthermore,
you're not just learning about a person, you're actually learning about God.
Yeah, because God made them too.
Yeah.
You know, and I like how you called out, because so often we default to it must be a race thing, right? Like different means they have to have a different complexion of skin. No, I already know enough about my neighbors just in my cul-de-sac. Different from me, different from me, different from me, and I want to hear what's in their minds and hearts. Because it's going to help me enrich my experience in the kingdom, the gospel, better understand God's love for his creation and his people. You know, I don't want to miss that opportunity.
Tell me some other reasons why it's good to have a diverse set of friends. We got this one nailed, learning from one another. What else?
There is...
it might be good for people to just write that.
There you go.
And then below the YouTube or whatever, what are the reasons we should have a diverse group of friends? Put that in the chat. We'd love to hear that. Sorry to interrupt you.
Well, there's, what's that proverb about? Going to a lot of different people before you go off to war.
Is that the one about a council of wisdom?
Yeah. That's exactly right.
I don't know exactly the numbers.
See, I was just trying to bring everybody else into
I've never
different perspectives.
the addresses of the verses, but I know the verses.
That's all right. The wisdom is the important part of that.
That's right. That's right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when you mentioned we sometimes go towards a certain kind of different, we think of age. That's an easy one. I think another reason why it's good to have a diverse group of friends is when we don't, we can very quickly become the center of our own world. That's why I like getting on a plane every once in a while, because you look down and you're like, wow, this is a lot bigger than I thought it was. There are a lot more people here. It's not all about me. It's just a helpful reminder. And I think a diverse group of friends forces you to recognize other people's, not just their existence, but their existence in the world, how they interact with the world, their perspective on life and culture and all the things that you're dealing with as well. But they may even be harder to reconcile. But it just takes you from being the center of all your attention.
I don't think we can do what we're supposed to do. I don't think we can accomplish the mission.
I agree.
Is another reason I think you have to do it. I don't think we can get done what God wants us to get done if we're homogenous.
Yeah, you have ideas of how to serve people in Kenya, for example, but they probably have ideas about how to do it too. So if you, like, we've learned...
And they have changed the way we do.
Yeah.
They have changed the way we do church.
Yeah, and missions
Mission.
and all of it. Yeah, because yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you're in complete agreement.
I am. And
Get it out.
We have been there as a church and thinking about mission trips, especially short-term ones, where we come in and do something because we thought it was a good idea instead of partnering with the people that we're actually serving and going, okay, what do you think about us being here in the first place?
Yeah. Yeah, it's good.
You said something that really jogged my thinking. I can't cite the Bible verse, but Jesus says it's easy to love your neighbor. It's not so, or somebody you love. It's not easy to love somebody you don't love. And if you're only surrounded by people that are like you and that you love, you have no idea how to love somebody who is your enemy. And so I think surrounding yourself with people that are different from you gives you perspective that someone you don't know or that you're angry with is different, but they have qualities that are still loving and still God-given. And I don't know, it just goes back to the perspective idea, which is what you were thinking about with getting on the airplane.
Yeah.
So
Well, I would put that in I'm just trying to summarize some of the things you guys are saying. You started with, we need a diverse group of friends because it helps us learn. You accentuate that. It helps us learn about God, helps us learn about the world in some ways and the way we do things. And you're adding on, it actually helps us learn how to love. It actually teaches us how to love. We have a hard time loving different.
Because it's just not easy.
It's just not easy.
That's the bottom line. I mean,
Yeah.
the thing about the gospel, at least for me, is I'm pretty sure it wasn't easy to love me. When I look at what Jesus did for me, when I come to the realization of how God has been pursuing me through my life and all the decisions I made, that they must have broken his heart along the way. And yet he still chose to call to me, pursue me, and sacrifice for me. It is a model of love and service that, in one hand, it's unattainable. You can't actually do that, but it's a calling nonetheless. That's the nature of the gospel, and it frames up what it means to carry that cross or to live a sacrificial life. It is about service. It is about love, and not for your own sake, but for the sake of the heart of God. And one of the most liberating things, it kind of ties back to something we were saying earlier, is we've said at times that repentance gets a bad rap. So much of the lack of engagement relationally in this world is driven and confined by just issues of shame and fear. And in the gospel, it's like the woman at the well. Her shame was exposed, and yet it was a loving and truthful and liberating moment. And that's the nature. That's the contrary to this world nature of the gospel. That's the contrary to the relationships of this world relationship we have in Jesus. You don't have to be afraid anymore. You don't have to hide anymore. You don't have to try and cover yourself. You can be completely exposed and transparent before the Lord and know that he sees you, knows you, he's been with you, he's been pursuing you, he's going to continue to call to you because he loves you. You're a son and daughter because of Jesus. The more you begin to dive into that space, you're confronted with the limits of your own humanity, the limits of your own shame, which we continue to carry with us.
Right.
But God continues to just say, I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm not going anywhere. Still here. Nope.
Yeah.
That's fine. Still here.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And the world needs it so desperately. And they don't even know it half the time.
Yeah. You're saying, you're adding to why should we have a diverse group of friends? Similar to you get an opportunity to love them. What you're saying, it's huge. It just, you can't be who God wants you to be without engaging other people. You can't get there. And it gives you an opportunity to love. Like God loved you. This starts to go into the next question of why don't we do it? Why don't we have a diverse group of friends? That's almost more to that question because it requires of me to give something up. It requires of me to lose something. Loving someone else means to forgive, to get close. If you get close to someone who's different than you, they're going to hurt you even if not unintentionally, just because their customs are different, their vocabulary is different to get
Forgive
closer.
them.
So now if you're going to do that, you're going to have to start to forgive. But before we transition, I want to go back to something you said. You said you have a bunch of guys that go out in the woods.
Yeah.
That's all you said. What does that mean?
Backpacking, camping, hiking, you know. Yeah, that does sound weird taken out of
I
context.
just thought I'd give you an opportunity to close that loop.
Yeah. We go out in the woods, we'll just leave it at that. Yeah, backpacking, camp, all above board stuff.
Yeah, roughing it. REI, your REI.
Absolutely.
You got
Don't need
thousands
it.
of dollars of investment.
But buy
You
it
don't need
anyway.
Yeah. What are the things that keep people? We've started down this path. This will be our last. We've got about 10 more minutes left. 12 minutes. What are the things that keep us, that stop us, that hinder us, the obstacles to having a robust, diverse group of people that we're in conversation with? I should clarify. It's not just close friends, even. It doesn't have to be, even just acquaintances, people you're corresponding with every now and then. I would say most of my diversity friends are in that next circle out, but I have them. I engage with them periodically at least. It's not like, okay, you got to have a ton of people that it's just not even rational. Right. So maybe that's my first answer is, what are we really aiming at here? One or two friends that are really different? That's a pretty big step for most people.
Yeah.
Better than nothing.
In the workplace, it happens actually quite a bit, but maybe not in your regular lives. But even to just give yourself a little grace and just at least engage some acquaintances, you can get something out of that. Just, I almost want to say part of the reason is we set the bar too high.
Right.
Well, then I got to have this huge,
Yeah.
not necessary.
Yeah, your best friends don't need to be
Yeah.
totally opposite ends of the spectrum on your political views or whatever. You know.
Yeah, right.
I think one of the reasons we don't, and this is I'm going to drop a big word.
Oh, thanks for
as
warning
the
us.
first one out of the gate, is our ignorance. We don't.
It was anticlimactic.
I know.
I was expecting so much better than that. Ignoramucy.
Corinne and I are like getting ready to write, and we're like,
I feel like the weight.
That tells us what he thinks of us.
yeah.
That's right. Hey, everybody, comes a
right.
big word
Talk
for
about
you.
our
I'm gonna spell it
relationship
for you. I can't spell it. But I feel like the weight of that word, especially in such a in the culture that we live in, which is such a powder keg at times, to be told that we have places in our lives that we are just ignorant of, excuse me, has a lot more weight to it than we want to actually acknowledge or realize. So,
So, are you saying the obstacle to a diverse friendship or whatever is this sort of context that you're an idiot? I'm an idiot on my way in. It's like you're going to screw this up. Is that what you're saying? Like you don't know, and that slows me down.
No, but that
what do you? So, I feel like I'm a little ignorant on what you're saying. So maybe I'm going.
I was meaning more to some of the spaces that we live in the world, move through in the world. So, for example, my neighborhood is largely white.
Okay.
The reason it is largely white is for reasons that I didn't know about up until a couple of years ago.
Oh, wow.
And so all my neighbors right around me are white. So those people, in that sphere of influence are all pretty much the same. And so I think those kinds of things where we, if we don't already have people in our lives that are different from us to tell us, oh, you are ignorant about this other space in the world.
I got you.
We typically just stay in our ignorant spaces.
Yep, I'm with you. That's good.
That's
You might be an
natural.
idiot as well, but
It's a very natural thing to do.
I am. I know that.
Yeah, I think it's probably worth calling out that that's a natural thing to do.
Yeah.
Until you stop and
absolutely.
think, the opportunity to change that just kind of naturally flows on by.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are were you more?
Nope.
What more obstacles to a diverse group of friends? What are the obstacles?
At this point in my ongoing journey, I at some point in the midst of receiving the gospel, I'll always use language like that. I started to realize and get more comfortable with looking squarely at my own brokenness, my own sin, which brings about a deeper level, a deeper freedom in the gospel. And this is an interesting thing I noticed in the midst of my relationships. Somehow your ears begin to open up a little bit, and you can hear the brokenness, you can hear the needs of others. You better see the hard spots of having a relationship there, but instead of, I used to always, it always used to be like a trigger to power up, or I had to prove something, or I had to be right. You start to realize we're not that different. We have the same needs for the same Savior. We need the same grace. We need the same forgiveness. And it has this way of allowing you to listen more and feel less of a need to try and combat a thing. But at the same time, it's one of the hardest things that can get in the way, because maybe there's more dialogue I can engage in a healthy way, but there's still these areas in life that if somebody gets into that space, it triggers my brokenness, my sin, and I could very well miss that opportunity to repent.
That's huge.
To ask for forgiveness.
Yep.
Because I still need Jesus. I still need Jesus all the time.
Yeah.
So it's joyful and liberating, and yet I'm reminded of it's hard to be. I mean, I break God's heart sometimes.
Oh yeah.
That's how it feels.
Yeah.
It takes more sacrifice to love and have people in your life that are different than you. They have their own needs. They have their own.
I think that's one of the hardest things.
Yeah.
Jesus demonstrated it in spades. Love requires loss. And to your point, the reason we move toward people is to get something, normally. Even you can even twist the idea of learning. Like I'm gonna get to know someone just to learn something. It's like, for me, that's not the spirit of what you're saying, right? But that's what we do. It's like and so if we don't have even humility, I think you even actually kind of tilted that direction too. It's like you have to have a great deal of humility going in, because you're going to mess up. You're going to mess that friendship up. Pride keeps you from going in there. If you don't have humility, our neediness is what's driving us in there, or trying to cover up our neediness. And so now you've got sort of a false. I think the big picture there for me, what you're saying is we don't move toward other people because it's going to hurt or expose us. Again, so now that goes right back to one of your favorite topics is, where is your identity going in there?
Yeah.
Go back to why Jesus could hang in every crowd. He wasn't going in there needy. He wasn't going in there trying to prove something. He wasn't going there trying to protect himself. He was just going in there to love somebody, no matter what happened. Did you have something?
I just was thinking about opportunity, the very practical part of me. Everybody's just so busy with their own little lives that they don't create opportunity, and then as a result, there's no awareness. So get up, go to work, take care of your family, come home, put your kids to bed, find 5 minutes for yourself.
Rinse and repeat.
Yeah, and it just really has to be very purposeful, and it has to be intentional to be aware of opportunities in your life. So I guess it's awareness too. It's just who am I spending time with? Is there anybody who's any different than me in any kind of way? And if there isn't, then what do I need to do about it to change that? So I
like that word, awareness.
Of course you do. You like everything she says.
Yeah, you're a big Corinne fan.
Your point is what?
Keep going. Awareness. Woods boy.
Jesus was never under threat. Like he never felt threatened by any engagement he had with anybody.
Right.
Which is saying a lot, considering he was actually under threat.
Even as he was being physically attacked.
Yeah.
Look at his composure. Look at the language he uses. Look at what his prayer in the midst of persecution. His identity was never undermined. It was never unsettled. his self-awareness as a dearly beloved Son of God, who is God, right in the middle of his Father's will, never was that
Because his identity, in a manner of speaking, was to give away his life.
Yeah.
So
No, it was no shocker to
you
him.
can't take my life.
I lay it down.
You can't take my life.
Yeah.
You can't break my heart. It's broken. It's broken for you. It's like that's the difference. It's like it comes right and flies right in the face of every reason that we would engage anybody, particularly a diverse group. It requires too much of us. And Jesus' identity was, that's why I'm here.
Right.
Take it.
That's why people that have such a high confidence in the Lord are so compelling, because you get these little glimpses of that
They
relationship.
feel a little bit like what Jesus felt like to those crowds. It's like, not like this person speaks with authority. It's like, wow, that person is totally okay.
Yeah.
Like they just got ripped. And they're like,
And they'll be the first to tell you
That's
it's
like-
not them, it's Jesus.
yeah. And they might
know,
even
it's-
say it hurt like
I love
crazy.
it.
It hurt like crazy, but it's not going to put them under. It's like, it's kind of like, I knew it. I knew this was coming. You just kind of like expect it. It's not a bad idea. Expect to be hurt. Expect for that to be difficult. Okay, we're going to wrap it up. So I think where I would send it, so let me just go here to finish and just get your commentary on this. I didn't think about this in advance, but it struck me that if we're going to sort of tie this all together and say, what is going to be the one thing that's going to enable you, no matter what your strategy is, to diversify, to find some friends to lean in. Maybe you already have some diversity, but you're not engaging it very deeply. That might be, some people might just need to like actually have the confidence to try to talk about something. But I'm going to go to where we ended the sermon actually, which was Mary. If you're gonna be able to engage like Jesus engaged out in the world, you got to be like Mary was in the house with Jesus, which was learning to be in his presence, to get the learning from him first, to know him, to take on him, to be encouraged by him. I don't think there's a way to live the Christian life. Well, I can say that emphatically.
Yeah.
There is no way to live the Christian life apart from knowing Jesus and learning from him. So I would say, don't even try any strategy to diversify your friends. It's going to be for the wrong reasons unless you're sitting always and first at the feet of Jesus and building that relationship first.
I think that's an awesome call out. Our knee jerk is always to create a plan and then execute on the plan.
Yeah.
I think if you sit in the presence of the Lord and say, send me,
Yeah.
and then when you are sent, obey,
Yeah.
I guarantee you there will be a diversity that comes in the midst of that sending.
Yeah.
So you don't have to design it. You can trust that the Lord will send you if you allow yourself to be sent.
But you have to be, your mind and your heart have to be open and soft to what God is saying to you and where he's sending you. And I think that's a challenge for everyone, but especially those who, don't have as much opportunity. So when the opportunity arises, are you going to be ready? Is your heart and your mind going to be ready?
Are you ready for Jesus to come over for dinner? See what I did there?
Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah. And it's like, well, make him the first guest every day. You should have breakfast with Jesus every day, and maybe a few more people for lunch, and then a bunch of people you don't know for dinner. But you got to start with dinner alone. That's probably the learning point, is you got to start with dinner alone with him.
Yeah. Drew G.I. Hart, the author of this book that I read a couple years ago, basically is saying the same thing, that discipleship is the cure. And as he has talked about how Jesus has lived and moved in solidarity with oppressed people and people on the lower rungs of society. He points us in the same direction that we have said here. And he says, the Spirit of Jesus Christ is drawing all of us to see things from below, meaning from the other people's point of view, the oppressed people, marginalized people, people that are different than us, people that have different ideas than us, and he would put them in the from below category because we often feel like our ideas are the best.
That's why it's in quotes, because they're not really below.
They're not really from below.
Yeah.
But that is always where Jesus, that's who he was hanging out with, and that's where he is calling us to step into as his disciples.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I would say from below Jesus too. That's what I would go. It's like on the floor, like Mary, below the teaching and the person of Jesus. Ready to wrap it up? Anything else? Don't want to cut out too soon. Is something hanging? Anything? Good?
Good.
Thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
So
It was
great to have
fun.
you. So great to have you. So next week, it's not Easter, is it already?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's here. Resurrection
Next
Day.
week is Easter. This just in. Love to see you in person. Make sure you RSVP or online. Send the link out to some friends, people that wouldn't necessarily be a part of an Easter celebration. Give them a chance to do it. Be great. And boy, we got something to celebrate, don't we? Our Jesus isn't just a historically real person. He was. He's alive, well, today, new, raised to new life, waiting to lead us, fill us with the Spirit, make us his family, and put us on mission. So, love you, church. Thanks for being a part of this conversation.